A radiant hero butchered his own grandfather to steal a kingdom. And for 3,000 years, history has forced us to call the grandfather a monster. Prophecy is not a divine gift. It is a psychological prison sentence. We have been fed the golden propaganda of Mount Olympus and the Emerald Hills of Ireland. We were told that Balor of the Evil Eye was a creature of pure, primordial malice, a deformed titan who wanted nothing but to drown civilization in an ocean of blood and fire. We were taught to cheer when his grandson, the shining Sun God Lugh, pierced his skull with a sling stone. But history is a weapon wielded by the thieves who survived. What if the shining civilization of the gods was actually a brutal, lawless invasion force? And what if the monster Balor was just an aging patriarch, a desperate father trying to lock his own daughter in a tower, not out of cruelty, but to freeze fate itself and stop his own bloodline from murdering him? Today, we strip away the holy lies of the conquerors. Through forgotten ancient texts and shocking archaeological evidence, we launch a cinematic investigation into the real villain of Ireland. Turn off the lights, because the dirt is about to bleed. To uncover the truth of Balor, we must look at the bones he ruled. The victorious myths call Balor's people the Fomorians, sea demons, deformed giants crawling from the dark fog to terrorize the beautiful Tuatha De Danann. But the dirt of Ireland tells a completely different story. Look at the megalithic burial sites at Carrowmore and Carrowkeel, predating the pyramids of Egypt. What did archaeologists find buried in those stone passage tombs? Not the skeletons of monsters. They found the remains of an advanced, deeply spiritual Neolithic society, a people who spent generations tracking the stars, honoring their ancestors, and living in harmony with the harsh Atlantic coast. These were the Fomorians, the original indigenous bloodline of Ireland. When the Tuatha De Danann arrived, they didn't bring civilization. They brought superior bronze metallurgy and a ruthless colonial narrative to justify taking the land, to justify the systematic displacement of the native population. The invaders had to turn them into demons in the history books. Balor wasn't a monster ruling hell. He was a native king, watching a technologically advanced invader erase his people from existence. The darkest stain on Balor's legacy is the imprisonment of his own daughter, Ethniu. The myth says he locked her away in a tower of glass on Tory Island because a druid prophesied that her son would kill him. Pop culture calls it the act of a paranoid tyrant. But look closer at the psychological trauma. Balor was a king who could see the threads of fate. He knew the cosmic law, that the incoming invaders would use his own bloodline to destroy him. He didn't lock his daughter away out of hatred. He did it out of a desperate, suffocating desire to protect both of them from a curse. Every time he looked at her, he didn't just see a daughter. He saw the weapon that would end his world. He built the tower on the isolated, wave-battered cliffs of Tory Island, trying to freeze time, trying to keep her safe from the predatory gods who sought to manipulate her womb. But the invaders, the Tuatha De Danann, didn't care about a father's pain. They sent Cian, a master of deception, to infiltrate the island, breach her sanctuary, and forcefully initiate the bloodline of their ultimate weapon. Lugh, the prison wasn't built by Balor's malice. It was built by his desperation. The defining weapon of terror in Celtic lore is Balor's evil eye, a gaze so destructive it could incinerate entire armies and poison the land. The texts say it took 4 men to raise the eyelid using iron rings. But let's strip away the mythological exaggerations and look at the strategic reality. Balor's eye wasn't an offensive weapon of conquest. He didn't march across the world using it to enslave other nations. It was a defensive apocalypse, a final desperate weapon of mass destruction used by an indigenous race facing absolute extinction. It was a biological and psychological scorched earth defense. When your enemy possesses advanced magic, superior weapons, and wants to wipe your family from the face of the earth, you open the eye. Archaeology reveals that during the Bronze Age transition in Ireland, multiple native settlements were burned to melted glass, a phenomenon called vitrification. The legends call it the glare of Balor. The historical reality? It was the remnants of a brutal, desperate defense mechanism used to turn the ancestral soil into a wasteland, rather than letting the invaders claim it. We are taught to worship the Tuatha De Danann as gods of light, art, and beauty. But if you read the Liber Gabala Aaron, the Book of Invasions, without the divine filter, their arrival was a textbook military colonization. They didn't come to coexist. They arrived in dark clouds, burned their own ships upon landing so they could never retreat, and immediately demanded half of Ireland. When the native Fomorians refused to give up their ancestral home to these skyborn refugees, the Danann unleashed a war of psychological terror. They used their advanced technology, which the natives called magic, to cast plagues, poison the rivers, and summon illusions of endless armies. They weren't holy deities bringing enlightenment. They were an elite, technologically weaponized force displacing a Neolithic culture. The tragedy of Balor is that he was forced to play the role of the barbarian because he refused to bow to the beautiful invaders. The line between god and colonizer is entirely a matter of who holds the pen. The climax of the myth is the Second Battle of Mag Twyard, where the hero Lugh confronts his grandfather Balor. Pop culture images show an epic, honorable duel between light and darkness. The ancient texts reveal a brutal, cowardly execution. Balor was old, exhausted, his body heavy with the weight of a dying empire. He had raised his defensive eye to protect his retreating people. Lugh, his own grandson, didn't face him with a blade. He didn't look him in the eye with honor. Lugh waited until Balor was blinded by the heavy shroud, snuck into the deep shadows behind his back, and used a primitive sling stone to strike the back of Balor's head. The force of the blow didn't just kill him. It blasted his defensive eye right through his skull, turning his own weapon inward, incinerating the Fomorian army behind him. Lugh didn't slay a demon. He assassinated an aging, vulnerable grandfather who was protecting his family, and then used the tragedy to claim a blood-stained throne. The Fomorians were slaughtered, their culture erased, their memory turned into bedtime stories about monsters, but the stone remembers. We fear the monster because the conqueror told us to. Balor of the Evil Eye wasn't a tyrant of malice. He was a grandfather crushed by a prophecy, and a king who failed to stop a genocide. So, let's settle the score in the comments. Is a man who sneaks behind his aging grandfather's back to execute him a hero, or the ultimate coward? And is a king who turns his land into a wasteland to stop a colonial invasion a Beo Chua, or a true protector? Did you spot the silver Triskelion coin hidden in the shadows of the eye? The first to timestamp it correctly gets pinned at the top. And now, you hold the power. Who do we strip of their glory next? The unhinged madness of the Greek god Dionysus, or the child sacrifice of King Agamemnon? Vote now by typing your choice below. The stone has spoken. Until next time, stay in the shadows.